Hello, Thomas Kennedy talking out loud again about evolution versus creation. Um, Today, I just wanted to talk about some of the insurmountable problems with the idea of evolution that essentially prove that it's impossible. First of all, there is no fossil record ever found between different species. Now, you would think if we're changing, we started out as a one-celled amoeba, let's say, and we've developed into this amazing creature that we are. And you would think along the way you would have fossils of every aspect of those changes. Well, there are specific species that have fossils that have been found, yet there's none that show a change from one species to the next. So it proves that it didn't happen. In any case, the second law of thermodynamics, if you've ever studied it, it has a simple declaration that in every chemical reaction that happens in nature, the outcoming products are always simpler than what you started with. So if you started with two quite complex chemicals that reacted with one another, what you would have as a result are less complicated elements. Now, that alone is the exact opposite of what evolution proposes, that accidentally we just became more complex to the point where we are now. So, sorry about that, boys. It just cannot work. And then we, as the humans on this earth, if you look around, we're the top of the food chain. We essentially rule the world. Now, if you think about how a baby comes out of a mother's womb, totally in need of protection and feeding and just being completely looked after. It has no means of taking care of itself. And I would say it takes at least a decade before one of us could exist on our own in this world and be able to survive. But if you look at in nature, some of the animals, like a gazelle, when a gazelle has a baby, within minutes, that baby gazelle is able to get up and run with the herd. Like, if that wasn't possible, that gazelle wouldn't survive, because the lions and tigers in the area would be very quick to snap it up if it couldn't run away with the rest of the herd. So just to look at those two items, like it just shows that by evolution we could never have gotten to be where we are. Let's look at some of the things in our body, like our eyesight. Our eyesight is so complex, it would have taken millions of years to evolve. And like even the most complicated cameras and photography equipment in the world is not even as complicated as our human eye and how it relates to the brain. So if it took millions of years for our eyesight to evolve, that means we would have had to have lived in this world as blind people for those millions of years. Now you think about it. If you were blind, or let's say we have a blind person, he rambles off into the forest and gets lost, and we can't find him. how long would he survive being blind? First of all, he's got to find food and water. Well, if he can hear, he could hear water if it's flowing. If he would have to find shelter if there's bad weather. He would have to be protected from predators that would be out to have him for lunch. And I don't think he'd last more than a week or two, maybe a month. But without eyesight, you just wouldn't be able to do it. How about our respiratory system, our lungs? We have 5 million alveoli that transfer oxygen and carbon dioxide in and out of the lungs for us to stay alive. How many millions of years did it take for the respiratory system to evolve? Millions. Even if it's hundreds of thousands, okay? 100,000 years. If it took longer than 3 minutes, we wouldn't survive, because our lungs give us life. We breathe in air, we get the oxygen into the air, goes into our body, and it strengthens our cells with the red blood system. So if it took millions of years to develop our lungs, we just wouldn't be around to use them. Now, how complex is our reproductive system? How many millions of years would that have taken? Many. It's probably as complicated as our eyesight. It's actually more complicated in the sense that male and female reproductive systems have to coordinate with one another. Now, if we're in two separate bodies, how would one body know what the other body is going to have, that they would have to complement it in order for a baby to be produced? It just wouldn't happen. Think about it. You got a man, okay, let's say he's developing over millions of years to have a reproductive system with a penis and that can be erected and that can exude sperm to recreate another human being. And a woman creating a complementary system for millions of years to work with the man's system to be able to fertilize this egg that's in her womb and bring a new life. Well, if it took more than one lifetime, we're gone. We would have to be able to reproduce as soon as we come here in order to stay around. So another impossibility for evolution. Could never happen by accident. Okay, let's look at, let's see, our autonomic nervous system that causes our heart to beat automatically and our lungs to breathe. How many millions of years for that to evolve? Okay, the autonomic nervous system releases electronic element every few seconds that causes your lungs to breathe. It causes your diaphragm to lower, which pulls air into the lungs. It also causes your ribs to enlarge, to cause the lungs to draw in air. If that system was not existing when we were first put on this earth, in any case, this electronic element that goes and causes it to we automatically breathe. We can, to some degree, control our breathing. We can hold our breath. We can breathe fast or slow or heavy or light. But what happens when you go to sleep? This autonomic nervous system releases this electronic impulse every few seconds to cause your lungs to bring in air and exhale carbon dioxide. And that all happens for the 8 hours you're asleep. If this system was not in place when you first came onto this earth, as soon as you went to sleep, you'd stop breathing. Okay, what about that little flap that covers your windpipe when we swallow? Have you ever tried to swallow and breathe at the same time? Once you start that swallowing process, your windpipe is covered over by this little flap, the epiglottis, that won't allow any food to go into your lung system, into your breathing system. So if that took, let's say, a few 100,000 years to develop, what would we be doing here when we eat our first meal? Half of it would go down into our lungs because the actual windpipe is in front of the epiglottis, the food pipe. So the food would go directly into our lungs and we would choke to death the first time we ate a meal. And I don't think that could really happen. Evolution, you lost again. How long for the mammary glands in a mother to be formed? These are the glands that cause the mother to produce milk in her breasts. And if it took hundreds of thousands or millions of years, then the first baby would have starved to death. You can't feed a baby on grass or anything else because they need that mother's milk to bring all the nutrients into them that they need. And without it, they're not going to live. Another X for evolution. Now, how about the stomach? The stomach produces acids so strong that they dissolve meats. You eat a wonderful steak, your stomach has acids in there that dissolve it and break it down and take the nutrients out of it and supply it to your body. But why does it not dissolve the stomach itself? It's made out of a form of meat. It's got stomach muscles there, and they don't dissolve. Well, it's because the stomach secretes a mucous membrane that protects the lining of the stomach. And believe it or not, the stomach lining replaces itself every 4 or 5 days. That's miraculous. So, again, creation gets the win. But the big question is, why is it so many people believe in evolution? It's a puzzle to me. But it seems, from what I've seen, that there's we're force-fed the idea of evolution from the time of birth. Most of it from books, stories, TV, movies. They propagate evolution, especially in schools. Like, it tells us that that's how we got here. And it doesn't allow, in the public school system, it doesn't allow any other option. It doesn't speak about the possibility of being created by some amazing individual. And so most of us have no idea of how amazing this body is. That's why I'm sharing these things that show us we're just absolutely divinely made, because everything in this body, the 11 systems in this body, operate in perfect harmony with one another to give us good health and keep us alive for our lifetime. But the thing about evolution is they use misleading terms to take away from the fact that their theory is based on multiple accidents that happens over extremely long periods of time. They use the term Mother Nature. It kind of gives nature a personality, like we see it as something more than just accidental things that take place. If there's a mother involved, it gives it personality. There's the idea of random selection. Well, random selection means there's choices being made, and it gives evolution some kind of form of intelligence, not just accidents. They use the term Father Time because it took many years, millions of years. And if there's a father involved, there's again an idea of personality. So if we even had a basic understanding of the magnificence of our human body, we could never entertain the preposterous idea that we were here by accident. The only possible conclusion is that we have been breathtakingly engineered by the ultimate designer, the God of heaven and earth, who created this universe, created this world, and created us for his purposes. And if you have any idea of who he is, or if you really just want to open yourself up to the reality of this supernatural being, he will reveal himself to you. He wants you to know him as the God who made you and created you for purpose that you may not even understand, but he would like to show it to you so that you can fulfill what you were put on this earth for. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm done talking out loud. Thomas Kennedy saying goodbye. See you next time.